So I wanted to give a big shout out to Nola, and it was mentioned in one of our breakout rooms that Nola is going to be retiring, I guess at the end of this month. So unfortunately, Nola's going to be hanging it up and sipping cocktails on the beach or traveling around the world or doing whatever she's going to be doing. But she's stepping down from the NTRP board. So we wanted to just recognize her, and we've got a little picture collage with some pictures of Nola throughout the years and her service with NTRP and Interfaith Family Services and some of her friends along the way. So at this time, if Nola, if you're available, I was going to turn it over to you and have you say a few words if you're available and able.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. That's quite a memory lane there, and it has been a lot of wonderful memories with the North Texas Relocation Professionals. I have really enjoyed getting to know people, and the whole membership is so, they have a servitude attitude. They're so willing to help in partnership and sharing ideas, and the great programs that we've had, and the opportunity to represent North Texas Relocation Professionals going to Interfaith. It's really been a wonderful, incredible experience, and I'm going to miss it. But good thing I have developed some wonderful friendships. So thank you, Chris. And I know that you're going to keep on keeping on, and things are only going to get better.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and we wish you the best of luck in your retirement.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Nola.
Thank
Enjoy
you, Nola,
your
for
time.
Thank you, Nola.
everything.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm gonna announce our 2021 NTRP board. Normally we'd be in a big crowd and I'd ask everybody to stand up. We're not really in that environment anymore. So if you want to just give a little wave when I say your name, that would be awesome. Our vice president for 2021 is Patience Hawley. Our secretary is Vicki Heitman. The treasurer, Pam Pinto. Our membership board is Sherelle Kilgore and Colleen Frazier. Sponsorship is Tom Wortham. Programs, who put on wonderful programs, including this one, is Bruce Waller and Jennifer Fisher. Thank you guys for all you do. Communications and social media is our very own grumpy Garen Gore and Deb Burrell. Just kidding, Garen, you know I love you.
Love
Outreach.
Wait a minute.
I love you too. Outreach, again, Dana and Nola have been in charge of outreach, and with Nola stepping down, Dana's going to be doing our outreach this year. Scholarship, Amber Gibson. And in charge of a website are Mark Waller and Grant Wicks.
I'll be the Grant one.
Grant one. And then our advisory chairs for this year, Kelly Wortham, Felicia Wright, Ray Callis, and past president, 2020 past president, Jane Woolston. And then again, it was mentioned earlier, I'm honored to be selected as the 2021 president for the North Texas Relocation Professionals. I look forward to getting back together in person at some point. We're hoping to be able to do that later this year. That's on the agenda. So hopefully some handshakes and some hugs later this year. Until then, virtual fist bump, and I'll hand it back over to Bruce. Bruce, you ready?
I am ready. I am ready. I am pulling up
away.
our, yeah. Appreciate that. Stand by. Let's see here. I'll put my speaker up here on the spotlight. How about that? I'll pull him up. That's fantastic. Appreciate that very much. We have a great crowd today. Just a couple of things. Just a reminder, if you got the text or didn't get a text at 11 o'clock, if you could just put that in the chat. If you got it, what was your experience like? This is the first time we're kind of trying this out as a reminder before the meeting. Hopefully that helps. I know Chris shared a message where it helped with the link. Carolyn mentioned earlier, it helped her as well. Just put that in the chat, and we're going to continue to try to drive the best experience we can for North Texas relocation professionals as the year goes on. And so thanks to Mark and Grant for putting that together. And then also, real quick, thank you, Nola. Anybody put it in the chats if you've had an opportunity to be part of Nola's journey. I mean, 20 years, are you kidding me? I remember one of my first meetings, Nola and Jill Wiley were co-presidents because we had just merged a couple of the associations together. I think DRP, I think Deb Burrell, a part of that was part of that as well. And I just remember, like, I think that was the first time I met Nola, and I've had the opportunity to serve with you. And I thank you, appreciate you, and being an incredible ambassador for the organization. So, wow, that's awesome. Love that. Okay. I am going to just do a couple more things here, and then we will get started. Perfect. Okay. We're going to go ahead and kick the program off. And I want to just mention real quick, Jennifer Fisher, also part of the programs, is going to be monitoring the chats. So as we are going through the program, if you have something in there, she may be interrupting and sharing something from the chats, but we're hoping to make this interactive. I met Ed Curtis, I guess it's about a year or two ago, and through an introduction, had Ed on my podcast, and I've just admired everything Ed's done. I cannot wait for him to share his story. And so I was going to just real quick give a brief bio of Ed Curtis, and then we'll kick off our program. Ed Curtis is the Chief Executive Officer for the organization called YTexas. That's the letter Y, Texas. He also is a podcast host. He's an author. He's a speaker. And you are going to really, really enjoy getting to know Ed. He was born and raised in New York, and he's going to share that story. I'm pretty sure he's going to share a lot of stories with all of us today. But he was born and raised in New York and relocated to Dallas, Texas at the age of 25. And then, as a Texas commercial banking executive, Ed witnessed an increased number of clientele relocating their businesses into Texas. And as a result, he basically exited the banking industry to form YTexas. In 2012, Ed traveled the world with Governor Rick Perry in his Office of Economic Development, assisting in the recruitment of companies interested in relocating or expanding their business into Texas. YTexas is an elite business network that helps support, promote, and connect companies that are relocating and expanding into the Lone Star State. I'm going to hold up a book. This book right here, if you can see that, is called YTexas, and we're actually going to give away 3 of these books today. At the end of the meeting, we're actually going to have a drawing, and we'll connect with the people that have won these. So if you attended the meeting, you'll be in the drawing for that. And I actually have read this book, and this is an absolutely fascinating book. It's stories about these leaders, CEOs that have moved their organizations to Texas, and not just why they moved, but why they stay here. And like, for example, chapter 2 is Toyota North America. We're all familiar with Toyota, aren't we? So this story is the Jim Lentz story. And then I noticed also Kinder Scott. So if you're familiar with Kinder Scott, Austin, Texas. And so fantastic book, books available. We'll put the link following the meeting if you want to order that. And of course, we're going to give away some books. But I am so excited you're here, Ed, and then I would look forward to you sharing today and just inspiring the group like you always do. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. And I just wanted to make sure, is my microphone working okay?
Microphone sounds great.
Okay, good. I just logged on. Well, I don't know Nola, but she sounds like an amazing woman. Bruce, all right, so before I get started, I want you to kind of work with me on this. And can we do kind of an interactive presentation, Bruce?
We sure can. You bet.
Okay, good, good. Well, I thank you all for having me here. I thought what I would do is talk a little bit about what I'm seeing in the relocation market, but then really open it up to conversation, quite honestly, and storytelling. I think everyone's got their own Texas story, and they're funny, and they're unique, and they're different. And even for people who are native Texans, I talked to a woman the other day who her mother's maiden name is Seguin, and she found out that the city of Seguin was named after her family. She didn't even know that. So just some interesting stories. But I figured I would just start out by telling my story, but maybe Bruce could tell his, and then we could all share our Texas stories in the chat. And we had done this at another event before, and it was interesting and funny. But as Bruce had indicated, in 1993, was living in New York City. I was working in Manhattan. I had grown up in upstate New York. My parents, I was born in the city. We moved upstate to get out of the city when I was a kid. I graduated college and moved into New York City, like most people do in New York, to work. I enjoyed it, but I was at the point in my life where I wanted something different. At the time, the two big cities, at least from an East Coast perspective, were Dallas and Atlanta. And I think that was around the time where Atlanta had won the Olympics. And I was very intrigued and interested about what the South was like. I was never there. I convinced a friend of mine who was a Dallas Cowboys fan to take a trip with me and just see what it was like. So came down for about a week and absolutely fell in love with Dallas. Took a road trip to Austin in a beat up Honda, and literally the car stalled as soon as we got to Austin. And I think it was a Friday. And I said, you know what, let's just leave the car. Let's go hang out and go to UT and meet some people. And on Sunday, we'll figure it out. And we ended up figuring it out, getting back to Dallas. But that was my one-way trip. I went back to New York. I had quit my job, told my family I'm moving to Texas. They thought I was crazy. That was 28 years ago. And I lived here. I still live here now. When I moved here, again, I was young. I got a training job at Comerica Bank as an analyst, and I spent 25 years in commercial banking. Got the itch to learn a lot more about economic development. I was very intrigued by it. And as Bruce had indicated, I was doing a lot of M&A work with the bank. And I joined an organization called Texas One. I'm sure some of you are familiar with it. I believe it's called Go Big in Texas now. But it's essentially the marketing arm of the governor's office, and it's non-taxpayer funded. So organizations would sponsor, just like you would sponsor your organization. And you get to go on mission trips with the governor. Small delegations of like 10 or 15 people that would travel around the world. I was in China, Chicago, New York, and it was amazing. And we would meet with these companies moving here, and Governor Perry was very good at recruiting companies, telling them what it was like, and being very aggressive and saying, you need to move here or expand here. And at that time, I saw an opportunity to do something a little bit different. I've helped them get more connected and network after they get here. I found that a lot of them, whether they were coming from another country or even, the East Coast and West Coast in some cases are other countries, they're like, what is it like to live in Texas? How am I going to encourage my people to move there? How am I going to succeed? And that kind of came up, started the idea of forming YTexas. So I quit banking, I formed YTexas, and I've been doing that for the last 8 years. So that's my Texas story with the beat-up Honda. Bruce, I want you to tell us yours.
Oh man, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. And I'm sure there's lots of people on in the meeting today that have these crazy stories. Back in 1995, it seems so long ago now, was when I moved to Dallas, and I was working for my parents in Oklahoma. My parents have bowling centers. And so I was planning on living in Oklahoma my life, and then got an opportunity to move to Dallas. My brother, Mark, who many of you know, who had his number 11 grandchild last night. He said, hey, listen, if you're thinking about making a change, he said, there's an opportunity for you here in our company. And that was in Carrollton, Texas. And so I moved here in 1995, and I stayed with my cousin for the first 3 months, lived with him in his apartment while I tried to sell my house. And I remember I didn't know where anything was. Everything just felt so big. And I remember my wife, we were going to live in the city wherever my wife got a job. And so she was interviewing at 2 different school districts, and that was going to be Lake Dallas Independent School District, which had about 20,000 people at the time or less, or Frisco Independent School District. And at that time, the population was about 6,000. And of course, she got a job at Lake Dallas, and we've been in the Lake Cities area since. And then now you've seen what's happened with Frisco. I mean, it absolutely exploded and continues to just be ginormous. But I just remember, the first couple of years, it was daunting for me. It was hard. I mean, I came from a small town, but here I am 25 years later, and it's home, and just absolutely incredible. And so glad I got the opportunity. There's one other person on here I was talking to this morning, and I asked him if he would just share real quick. And that is Grant Wicks. He mentioned he moved here about that same time. Grant, why don't you share your story real quick?
Yeah, just real quick. So I grew up in Toronto, as some of you may know, and it was 30 years ago that I moved down to Dallas. I lived in a 1,400 square foot home in Toronto and came down here to Dallas or Plano, actually, able to buy a 3,500 square foot home with a pool and pocket the difference. And I thought real estate's fantastic here. Well, meanwhile, the Toronto home is worth close to $2 million now, so it was a slight change. But was with a small software company up here based in Richardson, Texas, and they invited me to come down and get into product management. And there wasn't much technology going on in Canada at the time, so kind of came down, thought this would be a jumping stone to get to the West Coast where real technology stuff happened. But as it turned out, just could never make the numbers work out in California. So we stayed here. 9-month-old son when we came down is close over 30 now, and it's been home. It's just fantastic how the friendliness of people and the service, and that's what really I enjoy about the Texas landscape. Could use a little bit more trees and water, mind you. I must admit that was a little bit of a missing piece when we came down from Toronto, but we made it work.
Hi, Grant. So when you said the word a boat, I knew where you were from.
Yeah, well, some people, yeah, exactly. They say out and about, and that's usually you picked it
Out
out.
and about. Are you still a hockey fan?
Of course, yes. If my
Stars or the Moose?
well, I'm always a diehard Leaf fan, but I was 8 years old when they won the Stanley Cup in '67. So they're like the Dallas Cowboys of hockey, right? They just make all kinds of money and don't win anything. But I tell you what, the Stars has been fun to watch them do such great things here and really create a tremendously new sports venue for the Dallas area.
Yeah, hockey has been it's grown tremendously since the early 90s when the Dallas Stars, well, the Minnesota North Stars turned into the Dallas Stars. And one of the interviews we did was with Jim Whites, the CEO of Dallas Stars. He told a really funny story about how they tried to convince the hockey players to move from Minnesota to Dallas. And when they were like, what? Hockey in Dallas?
Yeah.
And he took them down here in the summer, and they had a great time, and they showed them on relocating the hockey team. And actually, there's some amazing statistics that he gave me that he said most of the players that retire from the Dallas Stars who are from Canada or other parts of the country don't move. He said like 80% of all the players that retire, like Ludwig and all of them, they all live in Dallas. So I think we all experience that as well. When a company or people move here, they're not moving out. They can say they're going to move. They're not going to. I see on the chat, Lindy, I know she moved. She's coming back. Anyway, I know we all have our interesting stories. So please don't be shy because it's everyone can relate to this. And I think if there was anything I wanted to get out of this conversation today, I mean, because there's not anything I can teach you about relocation that you don't already know. You guys are the pros at it. I'm not. But it is a personal experience, and I feel like the economic development organizations out there, the chambers, do a fantastic job of luring companies here. And you've heard all of the statistics. I mean, Texas is, the 10th largest economy in the world. We win Governor's Cup every year, I think, for the last 8 years. We have no state income tax. We have no corporate income tax. California has 10% corporate income tax, up to, I think they're heading up to 16% state income tax. And then gas there is over $3 a gallon. I think in Texas it maybe just hit $2 a gallon. Median home price, as you guys know, is somewhere around $250, and in California it's over $600. But there is a personal aspect to the relocation process that I think if companies and the state of Texas really help with, they'll be able to educate the people that are moving here better. I think they'll be much more successful in their transition. I think the companies will be more successful in luring more people to move here. Look, I mean, as a Texas resident, some people say, I don't want more people to move here. As a Texas employee, we don't want more people to move here. We want the jobs instead of them relocating the jobs here. But in your industry, I mean, look, the more people that move, the more trucks that are moving things, the more houses that are bought is good for your industry too. So I think it's a good mix to understand the personal aspect of that. I might, what I'd like to do is just go over 3 simple things that I think we should focus on in companies that are coming into the state that I think sometimes we're stuck in our own little bubble. I know when I lived in Dallas, it's a different world in Dallas. I moved to Austin 3 years ago, and I'm learning so much more about Austin. And now that what I do for a living is I travel the state and really learn about who's moving to what part of the state and why they moved and what their transition. I realize that I think people in Texas need to be much more aware of what's happening around the state, not just in your hometown, because what's happening with relocations is they're moving and then they're expanding a lot quicker than they expected. So I talk to people in the moving industry all the time. It's like, well, they've already moved. They already have their relocation company. They already have their recruiter. They already have their bank. They already have their moving company. That's not true, because they're going to be making more moves. They're going to be doing more expansions. And sometimes those relationships aren't there. I think paying attention to these companies and the life cycle that they have when they move here is important. So before I dig into these, does anyone have any questions or any comments? And Bruce, I'll let you kind of facilitate any of that. Yeah, mute, I think.
Oh, there you go. Hey, that was the 2020 saying of the year, wasn't it? You're on mute.
Yeah, exactly.
Jennifer Fisher, she's actually going to monitor the chat, and so she's also going to bring up any questions. I think we're going to do some Q&A at 12:40 or so. So be sure, and if you have questions, be sure and put those in the chat. So we're going to be asking Ed that starting at 12:40. But lots of good feedback. I love this. I was just reading about Deborah moving to Houston from Minneapolis. I mean, and then Carrie and Lindy and all that. So keep putting your stories in there. We absolutely love this. And if you have questions along the way, tag those in there. And then Jennifer's going to lead that at 12:40.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
And as I go
exactly.
through this, if somebody has a comment or a question, throw it into the chat. And Bruce, don't be afraid to interrupt me. I don't like talking for too long, but everybody says that and then they do. So.
Hey, I do have one quick question, and I'll go ahead and
Yeah.
put that out there from Grant. It says, what's the biggest, let's see here, what's the biggest challenge for continued growth of companies coming to Texas?
What's the challenge? The biggest challenge? Talent, for sure. Every region's dealing with it. Because the challenge for the company is, look, they're either going to hire the people here or they're going to relocate the people here. And if they can't find it here, they have to relocate them here, and that means more money. Then maybe it's more moves for the relocation industry, but the hiring process, helping them find a home and sell their home and move here is very expensive to them. So one of the most attractive parts about companies moving here is that they don't need to do that. So a lot of times they may plan on moving 100 or 200 people here. They get here and they realize, oh my gosh, we actually don't need to move that many people here. So it's a little role reversal. In the past, it was, oh no, we're moving to Texas. We have 100 employees. 60 of the 100, we need at least 60 to 100 to move with us, or the company is going to go belly up. We need to, we just need to figure it out. So I think now it's like, hey, look, whoever wants to come can come. There's plenty of people there. And I think they're moving less people than they have in the past. So that would be my answer to the question. Hang on one second. Okay, so I'm going to get into the big picture, 3 reasons, and I want you guys to challenge it for me. But the first thing I see is something really simple that we can all relate to, and that is, I think it's the fear of missing out element. Right? I mean, you probably talk to people in other parts of the state, other parts of the country, and they're like, what's going on? Like, what is happening in Texas that's making this such a big deal? And I think there are a lot of hidden statistics I think that people don't know about, but the companies do know this. I mean, look, we're approaching 30 million people living in the state of Texas. That's a huge market for any company that sells a product. We have 4 million businesses. We have 14 million people in the workforce, 50 Fortune 500 companies, 75 universities. And I know you hear these numbers all the time, $1.6 trillion economy, but that's a big deal for these companies that are looking to dominate when it comes to global competitiveness. And if you look at Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, and I mean, even people like Joe Rogan, believe it or not, and your Oracles and your Apples and your Facebooks, having being in proximity to 30 million people. And look, the major regions are all highly populated, highly dense cities. So I mean, Dallas, Fort Worth is somewhere around 7 or 8 million people. Only between Dallas, Houston, Austin, and San Antonio, that's the majority of those 30 million people. That is a huge market if you're selling directly to the consumer. If you're a distributor or a manufacturer, you're centrally located, and I know we hear that one all the time. But look, I-35, the I-35 corridor is going to be the super highway that takes products and services all throughout the world. And historically, California and New York, their ports and the ports of entry were much more dominant than the port of Houston. The port of Corpus Christi is now. So if you talk to the people in Houston and you talk about what's happening at the port, oh my gosh, they're like, oh, we are getting flooded. They're having to expand the waterway, through the port of Houston to allow larger ships to come in and out to distribute and export products. So the fact that Texas is the largest exporter in the country and in the world, again, we hear that stat all the time too, but that's what it means. That's why Amazon is coming here. Amazon has representation in 25 cities now in Texas. So, I mean, I'm sure you guys pay attention, but every single day I hear of Amazon having another facility, having another fulfillment center, having another robotics distribution center. And that's why I think that I-35 corridor, the fact that Texas is centrally located, and the fact that manufacturers and distributors can get their products to somebody in a day. Look, if we buy something on Amazon, it's funny, I was talking to someone yesterday, if you don't get it like in the next day, we're like, I'll wait. Like our ability to wait for things, even though the test treats, you need your cookies in an hour. Well, that's how everything is going now. So I don't care if you're selling a widget or you're selling food, it's getting the product to the customer as soon as possible. And that's playing well into what's happening in Texas. And if you look at some of the old school people, but the old school entrepreneurs in Texas, like Mark Cuban and Ross Perot and Tilman Fertitta and people like Roger Staubach, these are people that, maybe would be looking to retire. They're doubling down on innovation now. I mean, they see the future and they see Texas as really the center of a lot of this innovation. And I think Industry 4.0 is going to be all about distribution, getting the product and the service to the customer as soon as humanly possible. And these people want to leave a legacy here. And I can tell you that Elon Musk and the other billionaires moving here from the West Coast are moving here for that reason. They're moving here because they see huge opportunity to innovate over the next decade, over the next several decades. And I believe it's going to be happening here. So people want to be close to it. They don't quite know what's going on, but they know they want to be near it. And I think it's that fear of missing out and saying, look, if follow the smart money, right? They always say follow the smart people, follow the smart money. If Elon Musk is moving there and Oracle is moving there and Amazon is moving there, well, they must know something that I don't know. And in some cases, they're like, well, there's nothing going on here, so I'm going to be there. So the fear of missing out, I believe, is a big factor that I think people don't pay attention to. The second, yeah.
Oh, sorry, if I'm interrupting, I do have a few
No,
questions if you
I
want
want
to
dialogue.
move on. Okay, great. We got a good one from Aaron. Curious how you see our major cities selling or positioning themselves when they're competing against each other. So, you know, between Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, for example, how are they cities competing to win these companies moving to their towns?
That's music to my ears because I'm laughing. It's the biggest challenge that I think they have. And when I say they have that, you know, I talk to the EDCs a lot, and they're all partners of mine and strategic partners. And without them, Texas, in my opinion, Texas wouldn't be as competitive as it is. I think our economic development model is a bottom-up model, by the way. It's not top-down like other states. The cities compete, and the state will step in if they have to. So it's an extremely competitive industry. But I think we're at the point now where they do need to be communicating. Because if you move your headquarters to, say, Fort Worth, well, I can tell you right now, they're going to be expanding in San Antonio and Houston and Dallas and Austin, whether it's for an office or a distribution center or a call center. I mean, and the more value that local EDC can add to say, okay, now that you chose our Fort Worth for our headquarters, you know, what can we do to help you expand? Of course, they're going to show them the facilities in Fort Worth, and they're going to encourage them to spend as much money in their city as they can. But they need to be connecting more with the other EDCs, and that's one of the missions that we have over the next decade is really to try to encourage the cities to do that. Because and the reason why I say they is the customer, me and you, we don't care, right? I mean, we want to go where we need to go. And if it happens to be Fort Worth or Houston, for us, it doesn't matter. For them, of course it matters. I mean, that's their job, is to bring revenue into their city and their region. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. We benefit because they're so competitive. But I think the consumer and the customer will benefit if they work a little more closely once the company expands. But I think the relocation process is still going to be extremely competitive. I don't think they're going to say, well, look, you know, maybe you should go to San Antonio. They're better than us. That's never going to happen. So I don't know if that answered your question. I'm glad you brought it up because it's a big issue. But I think the future is they are going to be talking and working more. I mean, look, they have organizations like your organization where, look, you guys are all competing, right? You get together once a month or once a quarter and talk about and strategize. But you're not going to refer each other business if you're competing. That's just not going to happen. But in some cases, you probably will, because you understand that your clients' needs need to be met, and if you help them meet that need, you know, they'll come to you the next time. I hope that helped.
Yes, thank you so much. And we've got another great question from Deborah Torrey. Do you think with this expansion of remote working that it will affect companies actually considering relocation, you know, physically moving their HQ from state to state or city to city?
100%. Yep. I think it's one of the reasons why Oracle moved here. If you guys, those of you in Austin, I'm sure you're familiar with the Oracle headquarters, but it is it's like a city. And they started building this in 2018. And I mean, it's a campus. I mean, you can live there, you can work there. It really is like its own city. But and this is not fact, this is just pure opinion on my part. But that campus, when it was built, had so much more capacity to handle more people. And I think that they were planning all along that they were eventually going to move the headquarters here. And now that, you know, when they announced the headquarters, if you look in the papers and online, it says, well, they're not moving that many people. It's like, because they've already been moving them over the last 2 or 3 years. Now it's just the last 1,200 people, and they call it a day. So I absolutely believe that. I think, look, I mean, if you could live anywhere, I mean, it didn't matter where you live. Why wouldn't you want to live in Austin or Dallas or Houston? If say your family is from there, or you just, you know, you love Texas and you want to be in a lower cost environment. So yeah, it absolutely. And I think that's why things are picking up now. But I think it's also, I was talking about this yesterday with someone just on a very personal basis. Like, we all have aspirations, right? Someday, you know, I want to buy a ski house in Colorado, or, you know, whenever I get the money to do it, or whenever I'm ready to do it. Well, I think a lot of people were looking at Texas and saying, yeah, I'm going to probably consider going south one of these days. Well, pandemic hits, and I think we've all looked at our lives a little bit different. And they're like, you know what, now's the time to do it. So I think it was speeding up the decision that people would probably get eventually going to make, that are making it now.
Okay. And I have one more great question, and then maybe
Yeah,
you
I
can
mean,
get back into your regularly scheduled program. Do you know if there's any type of state coordination with smaller cities to encourage growth across the state versus everything sticking to just the major metros?
I mean, it's kind of at YTexas, perhaps. And I'm not here to toot my own horn, but there is no organization that does that. And that was one of the reasons why we formed our organization. It's really because it's about people, it's about networking, it's about connectivity. It's not about politics, it's not about regionalism. It's just about making a better life for everyone that's here. And I just think because things are growing so much and Texas is so rich, that people need to be exposed to it. And but I'll tell you one thing we're doing is we're working with a lot of the organizations and saying, look, we just want to be a piece of the puzzle, and we don't want to replace you. We want to work with you. And they're embracing that because they realize that it's such a, I mean, look, places like Fort Worth and San Antonio, we're never in the run. We are now. And then Houston is not a one-trick pony anymore. Houston is major in other industries outside of oil and gas, particularly as the renewables are coming into play. So I would ask you to just take a closer look at some of the other organizations out there that are maybe regional in nature and talk to them about this, because I think they are expanding their horizons for sure.
Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I have for you right now.
Okay, great. Well, the second one is a fun one, and that's people are moving here to make money. They're moving here to make money. It's that simple. And you can make money one of two ways, right? Make more money or have less expenses. So I think it's a combination of the two. They're moving here to save some money. They know that they can get twice the house or half the price of the house if they move here. And they know that they're in proximity to opportunities. Whether it's, hey, I've always wanted to start my own business, but with a $4,500 mortgage, I could never do it. Now I can move to Texas and get a $1,800 month mortgage. Now I'm going to quit my job. I'm moving to Texas, and I'm going to do it. And again, if you look at the history of Texas, that's what we're all about. It's about opportunity and, go out and get it. So I think, look, we all have, I'm sure you have friends, and I have people that are like, hey man, I'm moving to Texas, but I don't have a job. I don't have nothing. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, because I know I'm going to find one. I'm like, and if they're, let's say, in the healthcare industry, oh my gosh, I'm like, you can find a job before you get here. So I think it's just making money and the opportunity that really applies to anyone, whether it's Oracle or whether it's the individual. So, and here's some other really interesting metrics that just would, and you may know some of these, but I heard a stat that the DFW region is larger than 38 states. That's ridiculous. That's, I mean, go to Dallas and you might as well, you can, 38 states in one. I've also heard that you could fit the island of Manhattan inside of the DFW airport landmass. And New York City has 12 million people. Do you imagine 12 million people living in DFW airport? A little congested, right? Density is a big deal. The density, and I keep using Dallas, but I'll use other regions. I think it's 4,000 people for 4,000 people per square mile in Dallas-Fort Worth. In New York City, it's 29,000 people per square mile. I mean, that's like 7 times more dense than New York. So we all know what the pandemic is bringing us, less density, and that's why I think we've got just a huge opportunity. I think what I'll do is maybe break down a little bit of what I'm seeing in each region, and I think this may spur some conversation too. But I talked a little bit earlier about Houston, and I don't know if you guys are paying attention to what's happening with NASA and SpaceX, but that is, I mean, that's going to bring unbelievable opportunity to anyone all over the state, even up in Fort Worth, where we've got YTexas, and we're building our drone technology. But NASA and SpaceX, I mean, look, NASA is looking to put the first woman and the next man on the moon by 2024. That's not long from now. And in SpaceX, you know what Elon wants to do. He wants to put permanent settlement on Mars by 2024. And that's all happening inside of Houston. So what we're seeing is, I kind of talk, I use it, I say the Tesla effect. And that is, companies are now moving here to be around that are selling into that industry. There's a newly announced headquarters relocation, or actually it's a new headquarters, the company called Axiom Space. They're actually looking to manufacture products in space because of the lack of gravity. So let's say you build a space station and you bring it up, you bring it up into the atmosphere, and you can manufacture products differently up there because there's no gravity. And I mean, that's just an example of what's all being spun out of what's happening in Houston. So manufacturers, suppliers, people that are selling into that industry are moving into Texas. Has nothing to do with oil and gas, and believe me, oil and gas has a lot to do with it, but definitely something to pay attention to in Houston. That's what I'm seeing. San Antonio, military city. I think in 2017, they actually trademarked that name. So they have the largest active military population in San Antonio. For those of you who live there, you probably know that, but most people don't know that. So if you have veterans who are clients, Texas is a great state for veterans, and there's many, many opportunities here for them in all sorts of work. They lead in cybersecurity. They're the second largest city in the country for concentration in cybersecurity. And it's funny, I was talking to someone in cybersecurity the other day, and I'm like, why doesn't anybody know that? And they're like, well, Ed, it's cybersecurity. You kind of don't want the whole world to know that we're doing it all here in San Antonio. I'm like, that's a good point. But second to DC. So San Antonio there's a lot happening with cybersecurity. And if you all have kids, that's a major and a focus that there's tons of opportunity well into the future that the schools and the universities and companies are training into now. And that's a big part of San Antonio. And then they've got the largest military medical center in the world at BAMC. And look, at Joint Base San Antonio, they're going to probably cure COVID. Well, I mean, not cure COVID, but they're going to probably cure large diseases. Like one executive told me, if we ever get a cure for cancer, it's going to be in San Antonio. What they're doing in the medical community is beyond all belief. And if you follow any of the progress in COVID, a lot of it's coming out of San Antonio. So again, San Antonio, military city, a lot happening there, and that I think can affect the state. And we're seeing a lot of companies move into the area as a result of that. Austin, I mean, you can't talk about Austin without talking about Tesla, but about the Army Futures Command. And I think this is one of the best kept secrets, but the U.S. Army a few years ago decided to modernize and create a new command. And they looked at the way we fight wars, and look, shouldn't be fighting any wars, but the way we fight wars, or the way we potentially would be fighting wars, is going to be different than what we did in years past. And they realized for the first time since the early 70s that they needed to modernize the U.S. Army in all aspects of the organization, and they chose Austin, Texas, to do that. And they're working in hand with Texas A&M's Rellis campus. And they just received, I think, about $30 billion to spend over the next 5 years in partnering with technology companies to help the U.S. Army modernize their capabilities. So whether it's drone technology or hypersonics, I mean, all these crazy things that we probably saw would happen someday. Well, other countries are preparing for this, and the U.S. Army is preparing for this, and it's all happening out of Austin. And what's really interesting about that is they're looking to partner with small businesses that can help them with certain things that the U.S. Army just can't do on their own. So I think it's going to be a big part of the future of the Central Texas region for sure. And then again, being so close to San Antonio, I think with the military base there, I think a lot on the defense side and security side of things is going to be happening in Central Texas. And then Tesla, again, if you're from Austin, they took down 2,100 acres in a part of Austin where there was nothing going on. And it was a former sand and gravel mine. And it was nothing. It was generating like $50,000 a year in tax revenue. So when you look at some of the incentives that they got, the financial incentives that they got, similar to what we heard about Amazon and why they didn't go to New York, because New York was giving them all this money and it was a waste of money. Well, if you look at the metrics of what Tesla is going to do on a piece of land that was creating, I mean, I think it was like $60,000 a year in tax revenue, is going to create 5,000 jobs, thousands of homes, thousands of sales tax revenue. It's a huge win for the Austin area. And they're going to be building their cyber trucks and their SUVs out of that facility. And if you look into what Elon Musk has planned in Texas, it doesn't stop there. And that's going to revolutionize that industry. And long before Tesla, Texas has been slowly turning into kind of the Detroit of the United States in auto manufacturing when it comes to Toyota and other types of vehicles. But the electric vehicle market and the autonomous vehicle market is all coming to Texas. And it's going to be something, I haven't even gotten to Dallas and Fort Worth yet, so you can see the magnitude of what's happening around the state. And I think when you're in relocation, you should be aware of these things, because these all turn into jobs and opportunities for children, and everyone wants a brighter future for their kids for sure. The Dallas Fort Worth is logistics and distribution hub of the state. Westro Jr. in 1998 bought a big swath of land out where the Alliance Airport is and turned it into a 27,000 master planned community to where some of the largest companies in the world are headquartered. And we all heard about the Charles Schwab headquarters move, and that's about 70 acres worth of land that they're moving their headquarters. And that's just one of several companies that have all moved out to the Alliance, Texas area. So again, I think Dallas, Fort Worth, that's where Facebook is, Apple is, Bell is now, they're turning their helicopters into drones that can deliver products and services, medicine throughout the state. Could you imagine if MD Anderson needs medicine and it's in Fort Worth, they could put it on a drone, it could be in Houston in an hour. So those are the things that are happening in Fort Worth, and it's spurring a ton of opportunities and relocations as well. And in Dallas, Fort Worth, I mean, in my opinion, that's the biggest market for corporate relocations because the big companies are coming there. A couple that in my mind are game changers is the PGA of America headquarters. And again, people might say, well, it's sports, it's Texas. Okay, it's another sports team. It's not. It's going to change the sport of golf for Texas for sure. They're taking them down about 660 acres worth of land. And we're going to have a PGA championship. We may have a couple of Ryder Cups here, which is a national, international tournament. And they're focusing a lot on youth golf, and how golf and young children, it just teaches them discipline. I mean, any of you have played golf before, you need discipline more than anything else I can think of. But they're really trying to translate that into helping kids understand the importance of sports and golf, and they're a huge advocate for that in the region. So I believe it's just a lot more from their headquarters coming into the area. And then the latest from CBRE, which you could all relate to. Again, if you read the articles about CBRE, it's like, everyone's already here. Maybe it's a few more people. It's just a paper transaction. I don't think so. I think if you really pay attention to the market now, you're seeing a lot of investors, a lot of REITs, family offices and trusts are moving here. And look, real estate is it in Texas, even on the commercial side and residential side. So largest commercial real estate broker in the world. I think that's going to be a big factor in Dallas-Fort Worth. And then, of course, Schwab. And I don't know if you heard rumblings about NYS and the NYSC and NASDAQ moving here. I think that's real. I mean, we could end up being the next New York City. So I'm going to stop there and have you guys ask questions, because it's a lot to chew.
So I don't have anything right now in the chats.
Okay.
Any specific questions? Bruce, do you have any feedback you want to share with everyone?
No, I think that's great. No, this is absolutely outstanding information. Yeah, keep going. Now,
Sure.
did you cover the three things? The fear of missing out was one. Did you cover the other two?
Making money.
Making money.
And I'm going to get to the third one.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So number one, fear of missing out. Number two is making money. Love
Making money.
Okay.
And again, all of this equates to being in proximity to all of this for a job, for a vendor-supplier relationship, to make money.
And then we have a comment from Aaron Flores. He says he's loving all of this info. So appreciate you, Ed.
No problem. No problem. And that's why I figured, I'm not going to sit here and tell you how to run your relocation business. You guys know how to do that. But hopefully this gives you some information to share with them. Because again, I keep being a dead horse here. It's all about the people, really, because they make the company and they're bringing up the families. Which brings me to the last one, and this is a real simple one. I think that all Texans can relate to, and that's our culture. We're just friendly people. We have a ton of pride in living in the state of Texas, and I can tell you other states don't pound their chest saying, I'm from Wyoming. I'm just using them as an example. In Texas, they do, and people, and I'm sure Grant can relate to this. I mean, when you move, and, at first, it's like, come on. I mean, you're bragging about yourself so much, but I tell you, after a while, you start doing it yourselves. I mean, I formed an organization about Texas, and I'm from New York. It just shows you how infectious it is. And I think the country needs it. I think we already have it, and people absolutely love it. And I really do feel like that's a big part of the relocation process. People want simple lives. They want to enjoy their lives. They want to have a good quality of life. Of course, quality of life. If you have more money in your pocket and it's less expensive to live, it creates less problems and there's more quality of life. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're still going to be nice people and it's going to be a pleasant place to live. So I really do feel that that's the third thing, is that our culture and our pride, and we almost have a higher purpose and a bigger purpose, and that is, we want our kids to be Texans. And I joke about this all the time with people that I know from Texas. I'm from New York and my family still lives there. And I say, a lot of us have to go back home for the holidays. Because your parents aren't
Yeah, I
here.
don't know how long she's going to be.
But in Texas,
Texas,
families
the other
live
side
here.
it's quite.
I think somebody's in the background, but
Oh, on the other side of there.
Yeah.
so it's our culture and our friendliness. And I think, I don't want to get into too much of this, but the low regulatory environment and the ability for you to innovate and to create that opportunity for yourself does play into the culture. Most people, in my opinion, align regulations, they lump taxes and regulations together. And I think regulations to some extent are a little more culturally different. In other words, you have the freedom to think and to expand and to grow, and you're not being watched over, you're not being second guessed. I talked to a lot of people who move here from other states, and they're like, I always feel like whenever I do anything, I have to ask permission. And in Texas, they'll call like agencies and say, is it okay if I do this? And they're like, yeah, why? I'm just so used to asking for permission. And again, it's just that freedom of, it's almost trust, right? I mean, and people look at Texas, we're actually leading in a lot of environmentally driven. We lead in wind energy. We lead in renewable energy when it comes to innovating and coming up with solutions that are better than what we already have. And of course, the fossil fuel industry is a big part of our economy. It's also fueling a lot of the innovations in renewables. And I feel like people don't understand that in Texas, even the big oil and gas companies are saying, yeah, I know we need to work on this. And they are working with other organizations and other people to move things forward. And again, so I lump all that into just a culture of getting things done, being nice to each other, having pride in where you live. And I feel like that's big. It's undersold. So those are my three.
That's fantastic. Jennifer,
Go ahead.
any questions, Jennifer, in the chat?
Nope. It's just a lot of thanks so far. It's great information and content. A lot of people commenting on how they've also relocated to Texas and enjoy it because we're such friendly folk. But no other specific questions right now.
I was going to just mention also, Carrie Hatfield mentioned that she really enjoys the YTexas events as well.
I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that too. Do you, how would we, is it just listed on your website? Maybe we could put that in the messenger box, Bruce, for everyone to check out any upcoming events that he has.
Yeah, I will. We actually have one next week. It's called The Past, Present, and Future of Corporate Relocations in Texas. And I'll send you the link. It's going to be hopefully a fun, interactive event where we're going to be spotlighting some companies that have moved into the state. I usually like to ask one more question, and it's a simple one. And I ask people to describe Texas in one word, and it's a fun exercise. So again, I know you're probably thinking I'm too corny here, but I'd love to get all of you to give me one word to describe the state of Texas. And Bruce, how much time do I have left, if any?
Yeah, you have about 10 minutes left.
Okay.
We've got powerful as one.
Okay.
Friendly, big, fun, diverse, home, big, genuine,
Excellent.
food,
Well,
that's mine. I'm thinking about food, I'm hungry. Dynamic and independent, so that's coming from Deb, who relocated here from New York many years ago. Proud, Carrie says proud. Patriotic, yes. Spacious. State of mind. I think these are all really great words.
excellent.
And I agree with
You
all
put
of
together
them.
like a little chart of it. Well, I figured to wrap things up, I'll just give you a couple things that I mentioned that I would say as it relates to the relocation industry. to hopefully help you in your business. And I looked at the kind of the life cycle of the relocation. All we are is a connector. We provide information, and like I said, we support and promote and connect the companies that are moving here to allow them to be more successful. But what I've experienced over the last 8 years is there is a life cycle to a relocation that sometimes is a lot earlier than you think, and it extends out a lot further than you think. Because if you're in the moving industry, or like Aaron, if you're helping them find apartments, I mean, that's an immediate need, but there's a lot that happens before and after that I think you should be aware of. And I used the Oracle example before, and I even used the Charles Schwab as an example to where follow some of these large expansions and look at what they're doing. If they're taking on big swaths of land, they're probably going to be moving everyone here. I find that there's even as far as 3 to 5 years before the ultimate move, they're buying land, they're moving people who are opening up small offices, and what they're doing is they're feeling it out. And believe me, everyone that feels it out wants more of it, and they end up coming. So I would say pay attention to the companies that are expanding here, even small companies, because they're going to end up moving. And we definitely pay attention to that for sure. Give me 1 second. So the actual move, what I found, and this isn't good for business development people, but I found in the first year, people are getting on their feet. I use the example of, let's say you're moving into a new home and you're in the driveway and you're unpacking your boxes, and the car, the hatchback for the car is up, and you've got a whole bunch of people lined up at the end of your driveway trying to sell you, I want to mow your lawn, or I want to be your whatever it is. It's almost like, let me unpack my boxes. I need all of this stuff, but not right now. Like I'm a little busy getting the family all set up. So this is kind of the strategy at YTexas, because we want to help them from the day they get here to eternity to be more involved in the business community in Texas, and that's essentially what we do. But I found out that the more patient we were, look, it took me 4 years to get in with Toyota. And what was funny is when Toyota first moved here, I had one of our business development people, I'm like, get an appointment with Toyota. And they're like, okay. So one of the guys that worked at Toyota, his last name is Curtis. So I sent him an email. I'm like, I'm not sure if they're related or not, but I'd love to get together with you. He didn't really buy it, but he took the meeting. And my salesperson came back and I said, how'd it go? He's like, oh, it was horrible. I'm like, well, what happened? He said, I was in the lobby. I swear to God, it looked like I was on like a line for tickets to a concert. He goes, the line of service providers to get in with Toyota was so long. He goes, Ed, I had like, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds. He's like, tell me what you got. Okay, great. Give me your card. All right, next. So what we learned from that was we ended up getting a large sponsorship from them about 4 years later, because we realized, because look, if you make a first impression and it's really bad, you're done. Like, you're never going to get back in again. So I would say just feel out the situation. You definitely don't want to wait too long, because if what you sell they need now, then you need to make that phone call. But opportunities come along the way. I will tell you that the 12 to 18 month time period is where it's really hot. And that's where the companies are expanding. They're changing their relationships, whether it's their real estate broker or their real estate agents or any service provider they have. Usually if you're the first one to the party, let's say you sit on the board of the regional chamber and you land a contract to help them move all their people. If that experience wasn't that great, and the next time they're looking to open up an office in Houston and they're looking for a moving company, they might look for somebody else. So I definitely pay attention to that 12 month time period after they get here. It's kind of when the boxes are unpacked. And I think those B2B services are back on the table. But don't ever think that you're out, because these companies are going to be here for a while. And then the piece of advice I give, which I know you all are here too, because you're in this organization, is just do something to where there's no benefit to you. It's just an unconditional help. Even like a LinkedIn note, welcome to Texas, great to see you. Not welcome to Texas, here's what I sell. It's just welcome to Texas, we'd love to have you. And that I think doing things unconditionally for people, we learned that as well. In the beginning, we would invite them on our podcast. We would give them free tickets to a game, and we wouldn't even follow. I mean, we'd follow up and just say, "Did you have a good time?" Great, that's it, and you let it sit. And they appreciate that. And because I can tell you, coming from the East Coast, we joke around with it. It's the word we use in our podcast is, "What's the hustle?" Right? In New York, everything's a hustle. It's like, okay, I got tickets, great. What's the hustle? And in Texas, there's really not a hustle. I mean, we're just genuinely nice people. So I think sticking to that strategy really works. And on the future of corporate relocations, we track this. We've been tracking it for a long time. We think 2021 is going to be better than any other year. I'd just say our biggest year was 2018. And that was the year that the PGA announced and about 35 other large relocations announced in 18. 19 and 20 were great. 21 right now looks like it's going to be double of what any of these other years has been on the corporate relocation side. And I think a lot of this is the Tesla effect, the Amazon effect, the Oracle effect, the Schwab effect. It's going to be the first, second, and third tier suppliers to these companies that just want to be close to them. And that's how I see the future. Trying to think.
No, that's
Yeah.
very helpful feedback, Ed. We appreciate your advice and some pointers on strategizing there. To say, 2020 was a struggle for a lot of us, especially on the vendor side, is a little bit of an understatement. And I think most of us, we just wanted to partner with our clients and not be salesmen. So totally get what you're saying. So guys are running out of time. Does anyone else have any last minute questions?
Hey, I wanted to do one quick exercise. It's a little potentially corny, but I'm kind of feeling that way today. So I was at dinner the other night with my wife, and there was a singer in the restaurant, and he was kind of playing the crowd, asking where everybody was from, and who's from Texas, who's not, that kind of deal. And he said, "All right, if everybody can unmute their speakers, this will be probably more helpful." He's like, "All right, for all you people who are not from Texas, I want to show you something that you can only do in Texas, and everybody gets it. I'm going to try it and see if it works. The stars at night are big and bright.
Deep in
In the heart of Texas." I knew it could work. I knew it could work.
That's awesome. Good
All right.
ending.
Well, that's all
I
I've got.
appreciate that.
You can use that, Ed. If you're trying to get somebody here, you can use that. Everybody knows it.
Well done, Chris. Did you practice that all morning long?
No, but I've been thinking about it and going, all right, don't forget.
Chris, I'm going to end all of my speaking engagements with that now. I'm copying it.
That's fantastic.
All right. Well, Ed, from all of us at NTRP, thank you so much for your time today and joining us to kick off 2021. To our attendees, to our NTRP members, thank you so much for joining us today. We have 3 books that we are going to raffle off. So an email will either be coming later today or tomorrow to those 3 winners so that we can get your mailing address and get those out to you. For what we have planned so far this year, as Chris mentioned at the beginning, we are still planning to stay virtual at least until summer. So we're planning on doing like a social happy hour in February. The date for that right now is February 11th. We'll have our next program via Zoom as well, April 15th with Lynn Shotwell, and that's when we also will have our scholarship winners. cross your fingers for in-person bowling, July 15th. That's, you know, a little on the rocky side. And then we're really, really hopeful that we can do our in-person conference in September. That would be September 23rd. And again, that will be more of a full day conference. We haven't lined up the speakers yet, but we'll have a few keynotes, we'll have a few panels, corporate roundtable, etc. And then our last meeting of the year will be our holiday breakfast, December 3rd. And again, hopefully, we should definitely be in person by then. So all of those dates are on our website as well. But again, Happy New Year to all of you. Thank you so much, Ed. And thank you for attending. And I hope you guys have a great afternoon.
Yeah, thanks again,
Thanks,
Ed.
everybody.
Really appreciate you, man.
Ed.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you, Ed.